This episode of SC Charter Chatter is brought to you by Charter School Capital. Charter School Capital helps charter schools reach their full potential. Along with working capital and enrollment marketing services, they also help schools with facility financing. Charter School Capital has enabled more than 50 schools to secure, improve, or grow their schools' facilities. Learn more about their team, the 800 schools, and over 1.5 million students they have already impacted by visiting charterschoolcapital.com. There's the bell, and that means we're in session. Welcome back to SC Charter Chatter, the only podcast dedicated to all South Carolina's charter schools. I'm your host, Kevin. Thank you for joining us. We are presented by the Public Charter School Alliance of South Carolina. Thank you to this episode's sponsor. You heard it at the very top of the show, Charter School Capital. Check them out at charterschoolcapital.com. Well, it's a new school year, and it's a new season of SC Charter Chatter. After a 2-month hiatus, I'm really excited to be back, and I'm super excited about our guest today. Former pro athlete, now inspirational speaker, Chris Singleton. So I can't wait for that conversation. But before we get to Chris, make sure you've marked your calendar for our upcoming 21st annual SC Charter Schools Conference in Charleston. It's going to be November 29th through December 1st at the Charleston Marriott downtown. This is the largest gathering of charter school leaders in South Carolina, and it is the destination for quality training and professional development for our 15 local authorizers, 3 statewide authorizers, and most importantly, our 88 charter schools. You can be a part of this year's conference by submitting your proposal to host a breakout session. Just go to scharterschools.org, click the upcoming events link right there on the homepage to submit those proposals and to learn more about this year's conference. Okay, let's get to it. Our guest is a nationally renowned speaker with a message of resilience, forgiveness, and unity following the tragic loss of his mother in the 2015 Mother Emanuel church shooting in Charleston. He now shares that message with thousands of people around the country, including a key audience for him, students and educators. Chris, thanks for joining us today.
And thank you so much for having me. Honored to be on.
All right, Chris, before we get too far into this and into the more serious conversation, I want to mention that you played professional baseball. You were actually drafted while you were at Charleston Southern, and you were selected by my favorite organization, the Chicago Cubs. That must have been a pretty exciting time to be able to live out that dream, play in the minors, and that must have been a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, man, it was, I got drafted my junior season, so I think a lot of kids who play baseball ultimately want to, get drafted and play and professionally. And it was definitely a dream come true, man. I only played for about 2 seasons, but just the thrill of being able to travel the U.S. and playing and meeting so many great guys from around the world, second to none.
Absolutely. And then I know you still follow some of those guys, some of those teammates that you used to play with, rooting them on as they continue their journey. So that's just a really cool thing. And you're right, man. Growing up as a kid playing baseball, that was your dream, right? That was a bunch of people's dreams. So just getting to do that, man, that's really awesome. So congrats on that. So let's go ahead and get started, Chris, with our conversation today. And I want to start here. And I know it's something, you talk about a lot and you get asked a lot, of course, but the horrible tragedy that your family went through that was motivated by such hatred. How did you get here to traveling the country, inspiring people through your words?
Yeah, man, that's a good question. After I forgave my mother's killer and was still playing baseball, the TV channel ESPN, so they reached out to me and said, "Hey, Chris, we want to do a story on you and your mom. We think it's a phenomenal story of how, your mom raised you so well, and you have this message of unity, of bringing people together. Like, we want to do the story about you." So I did this ESPN E60 documentary, and it did pretty well. And people started asking me, "Hey, Chris, can you come in and speak to our youth group? Come in and speak to our sports team, our high school assembly, whatever it may be." And I started saying, you know what? I don't think this is for me, man. I didn't think speaking was for me, like getting in front of thousands of people. But I remember watching a video by a guy named Inky Johnson. He's actually one of my friends now in this speaking space. And I saw him give a message that just inspired me. And I said, if I can make somebody feel how this guy's made me feel, that's what I want to do with my life. And I started saying yes.
Right.
I started saying yes. And so one engagement led to the next. And then, all of a sudden I was doing, 60, 70 engagements every single year. And, I've been very fortunate to be able to do it this far.
Wow, it just starts with that one kind of, yeah, I'll go ahead and do this one, but and then the floodgates just open. Well, I've heard you speak before, and you definitely motivated me when I heard your words. You inspired me, and I know that you've inspired others. So I think you made the right choice in in continuing to speak to people across the country. So when you're out there speaking to folks, and all of this world throws at us day in and day out, and the things that you've been through personally, how do you stay so positive, have a focus for your mission?
Yeah, man, it's really a perspective shift. I think unfortunately bad things happen to good people, right? And we know that.
Hmm.
But for me, I always say our response to it is what ultimately shapes the rest of our lives. So bad things happen to kids when they're 7 years old. Unfortunately, some things happen when kids are 17. Some teacher may be in their seventh year of teaching, right? And things happen. But I always say it's how do we respond to it. If we're an educator, how do we respond to the things that we're facing at home? How do we respond to the kid that is missing meals at home, and we need to pour into them? Like I always think, okay, yes, we may not be able to control what happens to us, but we can always control our response to it. And that perspective for me has driven everything in my life, right? And that's where I'm at today.
Well, I think that's incredibly inspiring just in itself right there. I agree with you. It's perspective. I had a conversation earlier today with a coworker about, it's really perspective. So let's transition into the classroom a little bit. As a public school supporter and a charter school advocate myself, I just think teaching is one of the most important jobs out there that we do for our young people. But for 3 school years right now, the COVID-19 virus has impacted our schools and disrupted the learning process. So, Chris, what's your advice to help teachers who are struggling and finding it hard to stay positive and motivated in the classroom?
Yeah, well, number one, I have to tip my cap to teachers, solely because I've stepped into some of the virtual classroom spaces and seen, how tough it is. I've seen kids who, don't have their cameras on, or kids that are, trying to be engaged, but they're struggling with it. And the teachers, pouring their heart out, trying to make sure they get the information. So I've seen it firsthand how difficult it could be. But I just keep thinking, man, we know that teachers are on the front lines of being able to make an impact in these students' lives. And whether that's doing it virtually, doing it in person, hybrid, whatever it may be, man, I think there's just power in knowing how important educators are, right? For me in my life, I lost my parents pretty young. So when I had a question about life, I went to my teacher, I went to my coach, Coach Hall. Like, he was a guy that just poured into me and showed me this way is the right way, this way you shouldn't do it. And educators are those people for so many kids out there. And just thinking, hey, you know, I don't know what impact I may have on their lives right now, but in 4 years, if something happens to them, or in 4 years, if they're getting married and they invite me to the wedding or whatever it may be, it's just power in knowing, man, what you're doing matters so much to the world, especially to these young people. And I know it gets tough, but a lot of things get tough. But just knowing, hey, every single day, if I show up and I give my best, even though it may not be the best, I give my best to these kids. In turn, I believe that you're world changers. So hopefully that inspires somebody, because Coach Hall has been that person for me. I know these educators that are out there doing the work and in the front lines, pouring out their heart every single day. You can be that person for another kid as well.
I think you're absolutely right there. I know so many teachers who do that day in and day out, and these last 3 school years have been tough, and you just encourage them to keep going. That even they might not even know it, but they make such a difference in the lives of these students. And you're exactly right too, that these teachers in these classrooms, that might be the only adult that this child has, this student has to turn to on anything. And so those are great words, great advice there. So keeping in the classroom here, I want to shift to the student just a little bit. For many, school is hard, and it's not necessarily the work or the learning, but that emotional challenge, going through adolescence, maybe experiencing bullying, or just dealing with kids who are mean, or just the kids that aren't like them. All those outside factors that affect students. What's the message to help these students stay on track from a teacher standpoint, administrator standpoint, anyone that might be having the struggle with the students and just helping them get through?
Yeah, so man, I think this is so important, not only for students, but for anybody that's in the schools, right? I actually just heard a story from a kid yesterday who was messaging me about how they just got kicked out of their house. And so they're in the
Mm-hmm.
process of moving in with their uncle, and their uncle lives super far away from the school. And they were late 3 days in a row, got in trouble. And I was just thinking, man, just knowing somebody's story, whether it's your student, the student that's right next to you, not judging them because you don't know what they're going through. Like if you're an educator, like you don't know what that kid has, had to see or seen the last 24 hours. Like, and I understand we want to hold people accountable. Like that is key. And I think progress,
Mm-hmm.
but understanding, hey, you know, everybody's got a story behind their opinion, or everybody's got a story behind what they're going through. And if we don't know their story or what they're experiencing, it'd be a really rough spot to make fun of somebody, or to talk bad about a kid for being late 3 days in a row, not knowing that he just lost, they just lost their house and have to drive almost an hour to school every single morning. So just understanding people at the core of who they are before you automatically make judgments is something huge I think everybody should be doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I saw Chris doing a little research before having you on the podcast. I saw that you have a goal this fall to reach 50,000 students and teachers to spread love and unity across the school campuses, no matter where those are, South Carolina and beyond. So tell us about that mission and why that's so important to you.
Yeah, man. So the mission it's a grand one. I'm gonna be honest, and I think I've got about 27,000 students and teachers on the calendar thus far for the fall. Um, but I think mainly, man, the mission is out there because I've just seen the impact that I've been able to make going into a school where a kid says, "Hey, Chris, after hearing what you shared today, I feel like I can keep going forward. Like I've been through X, Y, and Z, but after hearing you share and all that you've gone through, and you're still standing and you're able to smile, man, I feel like I can be on the other side of this very, very soon." Or whether it's educators and finally understanding, man, that not only do we want to teach them for tomorrow, right? Teaching them how what a mortgage is going to look like, or teaching the payments of this or
Mm-hmm.
that, but teaching them for right now the life skills that they need to go back home. And I think that's super important. So just pouring into educators every single way that I can, and letting students see me. I'm a young guy, man. I'm 25 years young. And so I've just gone through so much over the last, 10 years of my life, and just sharing things I wish I would have known facing those things, I think is super impactful. So it's a big mission, man, but I think the impact that can be made from it is substantial.
I agree with you. It is a big mission, but it's certainly worth the effort that you put into it because I believe in it. I think that these students see your message and just the story you just told, and they hear it and they go, "Man, you can do it. I can do it too," and it helps them carry on. You go into these schools and you speak to these groups of students, and you just feel it. I mean, you're in that room and you're on, and you're like, "Man, this is I'm really connecting," and you feel it. Is it hard to kind of walk away from that event and just remove yourself
Yeah, man, it's tough.
and you just hope that hey, I made that connection today. I hope that it carries on to the next day.
Yeah, so a couple things that I usually do. Sometimes I get the opportunity to pour into the staff and do a professional development the same day that I speak to the students. And I love being able to do that. But I never just speak, for 30 minutes or for, 40 minutes or whatever it is, and then just leave. Like I have to give myself at least an hour to 2 hours after I speak, so kids can come down and share with me their truth, right? Share with me stuff they're going through. Or an educator
Okay.
can say, "Hey, I learned a new perspective today. How do you think I can use that in my classroom? More than just what you said, but how can it pertain to me particularly?" And so I stay there and try to answer every single question and pour in as much as I can, because coming in and out is super tough. Over the last like year or two, what I've also been able to do is, speak to a school, but also do follow-up Zooms for whatever student wants to, or whatever educator wants to afterwards. And that's been really big. So it's not just an in and out type of thing. And yes,
Yeah.
they may be inspired that day. They may be inspired for another week or another month, but sometimes they need to, speak, hear me once again, or ask questions about something that's pertains to them later on in life, or within the next couple months. And that's always good that I do the follow-ups too. So to answer your question, it is tough, but I've kind of seen ways that I can get around just coming in and out.
That's fantastic. That's really incredible. And that to me might make more of an impact than you actually being there that day and speaking to the masses, to the crowd as one, being able to connect with them one-on-one and hear their questions and answer their questions. That's pretty cool, man. That's awesome. You've also written two children's books now, right?
Yeah, I have, man, for sure.
Different and Your Life Matters. What's your motivation and focus and the message to these young people through these books?
Yeah, man, it's funny. Like I never wanted to be an author. Like I didn't, when I was growing up, I didn't say, oh yeah, I just want to write a couple books, do this, do that, right?
You're doing a lot of things that you didn't ever think you would do,
That's
right?
life, man. That's life for you. Most of us, I thought I was gonna be in the big leagues for 20 years, So
Right.
So, but plans change, and my mission has changed too, right? It's not all about me anymore. But I think mainly when I was writing the children's books, number one, I get to speak to high schools, middle schools, and companies, and NFL teams and NBA, all that kind of stuff. But I would never speak to an elementary school. I would always say, like, my story's so sad. Like, I lost my mom. She was shot 8 times while she was praying. Like, that's a very, very sad thing to tell a kid. And I didn't feel safe doing that. I didn't want to take away their innocence. That's not my place. So what I did was I said, how can I share the story of unity, my mission of bringing kids together without telling the sad part of it? And so this story, a story about loving your neighbor, basically does that. A kid comes from another country to South Carolina, is picked on because he's different, but at the end of the story, they celebrate his difference. And that's the message that I have for the students in this book, about how we should celebrate each other. And so that's what we did throughout the first book. And to be honest, I didn't think it was going to be what it is now. Like, I just wrote it. Hopefully, if I go speak to the school, they pick it up and share it. But man, the Obama Foundation shouted it out. There was different celebrities that just put their names behind it, and it's done extremely well. I could have never imagined what it would do. And then my second book is Your Life Matters, and this is more signaled towards little Black boys and little Black girls, letting them know how much they mean to the world. Last year in 2020, there's been so much racial divides and everything that was happening. I wanted kids to know, especially kids that look like me, man, how much they mean and how much their voice means, how much their heart means, and how much they matter. And so that's why this second book was written. But it also teaches Black history to every single kid in the process. And so that's what this second story was about. And yeah, like I said before, I didn't want to be an author. It's just after the success of my first story, I said, man, now I see it's another outlet for me for more people to be able to see my heart and my mission.
Can't stop now.
No, not at all.
Well, I think these are great books. I think they make good additions to any school, to classroom libraries. So if you're so inclined, pick those books up. They're great reads for children. And also, now I heard you on another podcast that said you were going to write one children's book a year. Are you still planning to do that?
Yeah, I am, man. So funny thing is, I wrote one in 2020. We had one come out in 2021. And we've already got my next children's book coming out in 2022. And it's going to come out in the spring, but I don't want to, it's a surprise. So I won't do too much or say too much about it, but
okay. Yeah, we'll be on the lookout for that though.
I'm super excited about it for sure.
Well, that's awesome. Another grand goal by yourself. So, setting those high marks, but achieving them as well. So that's pretty cool, man. I do want to switch gears just a little bit. But first, I want to mention Charter School Capital. We all know that thriving charter schools require long-term facility financing solutions, and Charter School Capital helps schools make that happen. For over a decade, they've helped school leaders secure and improve their school buildings with flexible, lease-back solutions. And this year, their team brought a new, no-cost bond alternative to schools that qualify. So if you're interested, chat with their team live or drop them a note or learn more at charterschoolcapital.com. All right, Chris, let's shift the conversation just a little bit. Currently, our country is in a political divide, and it seems no matter what side you're on, there are strong convictions either way. So, my question is, how can we be good neighbors? How can we be good coworkers, good teammates, with everyone having such strong beliefs? And to me, it just seems we just have a hard time disagreeing.
Yeah. So I've seen this, and this is kind of unfortunate. Like people have come together to critique and bash something else more than anything. So people have come together to divide more than anything else right now. What I mean by that is, this is just an example. If I believe something, right, and it's an opposite of what somebody else believes, right? Somebody that doesn't even believe what I believe, but doesn't agree with the other person, we will team up so much just to talk bad about that other person's belief that it's like, man, we don't even care about what we believe anymore. We're just so adamant about making that person wrong that people have come together to be hateful. And that's such an unfortunate thing because I think now we're listening. Yeah, we're having conversations, but we're listening to rebuttal. We're listening to tell them why they're wrong instead of listening to understand and to say, you know what? I'm listening to learn. And that's something that I've really been trying to do. Even if I disagree with somebody, I'm listening to learn their perspective. Even if I don't agree with that perspective or I don't associate my beliefs with what they're saying, I still want to listen to learn because empathy is understanding, the ability to understand and share the feelings of somebody else. And if I'm just listening to tell them why they're wrong, we'll never get to a place of agreeing to disagree like I think we should sometimes.
Well said, because I think that what you just described, it's not just political. It happens in all walks of life, no matter what your business is. It happens in education. We have different ideas. We have different perspectives. We have different thoughts on where we should go, what we should do. And sometimes we don't take enough time to listen and learn and go from there. So I couldn't agree with you more on that.
You know what else I've seen? Like, and this is just to put it in education terms. Like, I've seen people argue until they're blue in the face that 5 + 5 is 10, right? And the other side is saying 7 + 3 is 10. Now, we may all have the same goal and mission, right? And we may, in a way, we both might even be right. But I'm so adamant about telling you that 5 + 5 is 10 that I'm not even rationally thinking how 7 + 3 is 10 as well. And that's where I think we've gotten into trouble sometimes, that it's my way or the highway, and we don't even care about somebody else's perspective. And when we see that, bad things happen.
That's an incredibly good analogy right there. And when you do it, yes, I think incredibly bad things happen. You lose focus on the mission. You lose focus on the outcome. And in our world, education, the outcome is always the children, from where I sit. And so, yes, I hope a lot of people hear that message today, Chris, because I think that was fantastic. So you do a lot of traveling around the country, speaking to different organizations. You speak to, I know you just went to Houston and spoke with the Texans, businesses, organizations, big and small. What's your favorite part of traveling and speaking? Do you get that when you go into maybe Houston's organization, or you go into this huge company and you're speaking to thousands of people? Is it similar to that adrenaline you get when playing a sport?
That's a good question. You know what? I don't necessarily think that the adrenaline is the same. I used to get super hyped up, I'd get nervous, I'd get hyped up, I'd get all these different emotions. But, now I think it's just, me sharing my heart, sharing my mission. And so I don't really get too hyped up. I'm excited about the opportunity, but, I don't get too, overwhelmed with emotion. Yeah. Like I used to think, hey, once I speak to, Microsoft or speak to Facebook or speak at the whatever, or speak to NBA teams or what, I used to think that I'd feel super nervous and, get super amped up. But now after doing it, it's just like, man, it's just another place, another platform that I get to share at. even though these people may have more influence in the, first grade classroom that I'm speaking to, I think the mission is still the same. So it doesn't really, I don't fluctuate too much. I'm pretty even keel.
Gotcha. So when you travel around, whether you're speaking to that first grade classroom or whether you're speaking to a group from Microsoft, is it the same message? Is it always one message from you? And what is that?
No. So I mean, sometimes people want me to come in and speak about just overcoming adversity in general,
Mm-hmm.
right? Sometimes it's coming in and speak about, how I was able to finish, like when I speak to a college, how I was able to, keep going to school after tragedy and stuff like that. But overall, man, my mission, the reason why I started speaking is to promote unity, right? In our schools, in our companies, in our communities. And so my one non-negotiable when I speak somewhere is that I have to share about my mom, right? That is my one non-negotiable. That's the reason why I started speaking, and my mission of unity, right? So if I'm speaking about whether it's diversity, equity, and inclusion, or if I'm speaking about just leadership or whatever it may be, my one non-negotiable that I will always share about is my mission of how I think everybody needs to come together, regardless of where we're from or what we look like.
Well, that's a great non-negotiable to have, because I like I said, I've gotten to hear you speak before, and I walked away incredibly inspired and wanting to be more united. And how can I be more united? And I'm sure folks have asked you after they've heard you talk or whatever. Well, Chris, I heard your message, and I wanted to do those things, but I don't know how. How can I be more united? How can I help my classroom, if I'm a teacher, be more united with one another? If I just see that there's some sort of division, no matter what level, how do I achieve that with my students maybe?
Yeah, I think number one, you have to understand the stories of your kids and where they come from. So, if one kid is from a family that, if one kid has never missed a meal before, or if you've never missed a meal before, it's pretty hard to talk about what it feels like with a kid that's missed meals, right? So understanding, hey, I may not have experienced what you experienced, but I at least want to learn about it. I want to know about it. So understanding that first and foremost, and then two, really just breaking it down to teach this. Hey, there's really only two reasons why kids believe what they believe, why adults believe what they believe. There's only two reasons. Either number one, you've experienced something. So you've experienced something that makes you think about a certain group of people or a certain thing in a certain way, like you've experienced it, right? Or number two, you've been taught it. You've been taught it by your parents. You've been taught it by social media. You've been taught it by a website, whatever it may be. And so if we understand that kids are coming into our classrooms and they've been taught the wrong thing, they've been taught not to like somebody because of their accent. They've been taught not to, be friends with somebody because of the color of their skin or whatever it may be, or their social economic status. Like, we need to reteach that and remind the kids, hey, they didn't choose their name. They didn't choose where they were from or, how much they have or don't have. So let's not judge and let's not dictate who our friends are going to be because of those things. Teaching that every single day, I think, is how we can become those educators that are bringing kids together. We're breaking those walls down. When a kid says, hey, I don't, want to sit by this kid because of their religion or whatever it may be. We're breaking those walls down by teaching them, hey, okay, you believe what you believe, which is great because of what you've been taught or what you experience. And the same thing is for that kid just as well. So you don't have to be I'm a man of faith. All of my friends aren't people of faith, right? I'm not going to judge them based on those things. I'm going to love them regardless of where they're from or what their thought process is when it comes to something like faith.
Well, I think we can all agree that we definitely need more unity in this world, and it's great to have folks like you traveling around and spreading that word of unity and togetherness around this country. And so I certainly appreciate the things that you do and the words that you say to groups and to children and to adults alike. So appreciate it there. So as we kind of wrap up our conversation today, Chris, maybe want to go toward the lighter side a little bit. A little bit about yourself, maybe when you're not on the road. I know you have a beautiful family, and that's something that you spend time with and unwind there. But is there something you do to get away? Like, is it just like a hobby or something that you just kind of takes your mind off the world a little bit?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, first, I'm a father and
Mm-hmm.
married my high school sweetheart. So we've been together for almost 9 years now. But I'm actually we're about to have our second kid. So,
Oh,
yeah,
congrats.
baby boy number two will be here in a couple weeks. So we're super excited about that. But what I like to do, man, I just like to listen to music. I love to watch YouTube videos about, whether it's finances or just uh, whatever type of TV show my wife loves to watch. I love to listen to different podcasts. Um, I love to play pickup basketball. I love to shoot around, play hoops. Like that's something that takes my mind off of stuff. Um, and just, playing with my little man. My son's 3, so he's in that imagination, just running wild stage right now, which I
Right.
absolutely love. And so hanging out with him and being intentional with my time when I'm physically present, I want to mentally be present as well is something I do to take my mind off of everything else in the world.
Very cool. Very cool. Also wanted to ask you this too, Chris. So, obviously you played high school sports, you played college baseball, got drafted, played a little professional baseball. What was the most exciting time of those 3 levels: high school, college, professional? A lot of people that don't play, like, oh man, playing professional has got to be great. But was that the great time, or was it another time playing athletics that brought you joy?
So my sports career was play baseball from 3 until I was 22. Played basketball from age 8 till I was 18. And my best season ever, where I could say it was the most fun, we had some success, but it was just the most fun hanging around these people, was when I was a junior in high school playing basketball, right?
Okay.
So I know I played professional baseball and baseball player, but that junior season, man, it was a tight-knit group. Some of my best friends to this day, 2 of my best friends are my wedding. I'll be in theirs. We're on that basketball team. Like I said, Coach Hall was that guy for me. We're still super close. If I have something in my life that I'm thinking about doing, guess who I go to? Coach Hall. So just that camaraderie, a guy that actually poured into us and said he loved us, and truly meant it. That team was the best team ever, man. So that's my answer to that. Professional was cool. I got to make some money and travel around a lot, but people are moving up and down the ladder. They're getting traded.
Right.
All this stuff is happening. So you don't really have a tight knit community group. You got a couple guys you're friends with, but that high school team, my junior season, that we went to the state championship, ultimately lost that game, but we were so tight, man. We were boys, and we're boys to this day.
That's a pretty cool story that you're still friends to this day with those guys. That's pretty cool. Well, Chris, I want to thank you for joining us today on SC Charter Chatter. And also, I want to go ahead and announce with you on this episode that we're going to be seeing you in November at the South Carolina Charter Schools Conference. You're going to be speaking, and I think you're going to be doing a couple of breakout sessions, professional development sessions as well. So we really look forward to having you at that event. I think it's going to be a good time in Charleston.
Yeah, man, I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a great time for sure.
Absolutely. Well, Chris, thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate your time, and keep spreading that word of unity.
Will do, man. I can't wait to see you guys soon.
Well, that wraps up this episode of SC Charter Chatter. Be sure you've marked your calendar for the upcoming 21st Annual South Carolina Charter Schools Conference in Charleston. You don't want to miss Chris and all the other great things happening November 29th through December 1st. Visit scharterschools.org to learn more. As always, thank you for the support and for listening. Be sure and give us a like and a follow. Don't forget to click on that 5-star review. That really helps us out. We would also love to hear from you, so leave us a comment, or you can get in touch with us at podcast@scharterschools.org. Let us know if you have a topic or an idea for the show, or if you're interested in sponsoring an episode, you can email us again, podcast@scharterschools.org. Like us on Facebook and Instagram at SC Charter Schools, on Twitter, SC Charter School, and remember to use the hashtag MyCharterSC. Until next time, I'm Kevin. This episode of SC Charter Chatter is brought to you by Charter School Capital. Chat with their team at charterschoolcapital.com to learn how charter school leaders can enjoy the security of a facilities partner whose mission is completely aligned with your school and provides the flexible financing options schools need to thrive. charterschoolcapital.com. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented on this podcast are for general information only, and no person should act or refrain from acting on the basis of the content of this podcast without first seeking appropriate professional advice. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the individuals and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the Public Charter Schools Alliance, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any other entity they represent. The information and material in this episode will not be updated and may not be current. Please consult your own professional for any advice for your specific situation. To read the full disclaimer, go to sccharterschools.org.